everyone, this is Kim Vermaak from Write, Learn and Earn, and today we're going to be chatting about selling more books but doing it via a virtual launch, which is something that a lot of authors have had to experience. And we are very blessed to have with us today Raashida, who is an author and a poet. And when she sent through her bio and I had a look at her Amazon bio, I thought to myself, you are being so modest. She is an award-winning author and she's launching a fabulous book that's coming through very, very soon. And I have already started reading her Cursed Touch book, which looks like it's going to be a riveting read. So here we are to learn a lot from this absolutely spectacular lady. Welcome to the Author Chat section.
Thank you so much, Kim. It's wonderful to be on. You know, I enjoy watching this and learning from all the other authors. So I'm looking forward to sharing my little bit as well.
Super. It's such a pleasure to have you here. So with lockdown, I mean, when we went into it, there was nothing that could have prepared us for lockdown. All of a sudden, we were just told that we were not able to operate the way that we were accustomed to. I think I went to the Benny's book fair, and that was the very last book function that was actually allowed in South Africa. So I was so grateful that I could experience that. But then all of a sudden, the good news was that us authors who were writing part-time, we could now write full-time guilt-free because we couldn't do work. But things had to change. We had to move from going to do a physical book launch to doing a virtual book launch. And I attended Raashida's book launch, which was on Facebook. And that's why I asked her to come and visit with us, because she's had to go through that learning curve without any prior experience. And I'd like you to chat a little bit to us about how you prepared for the launch, how you experienced it, things that went well and things that you would do differently if you had to do it all again. So over to you.
So, you know, I must say, of my first love is writing, of course. And I always say, please just leave me in the corner to write. Let somebody else do the marketing and, you know, all of the things on Amazon and putting it as an ebook and all the other drama, the technical things that I'm always afraid of. I'm happy to just write. Having said that, though, of all the other things that we need to do as independent authors, physical launches are my favorite thing. I love doing a book launch. I love engaging with the audience. I love meeting people. I love answering questions. I like to read from my stories, and hopefully, because I like to let my writing speak for itself. So if I can, I'll always try and put in a read too in those kinds of events. I'm lucky, you know, I've managed to get very interesting people to be my discussants at my launch. So the people beforehand, I made Johannesburg and 3 launches Durban for my other books. Then my short stories actually never had a launch, online or otherwise, because it was launched just events. All of a sudden now they're coming out our ears. We've got webinars, we've got Zooms, we've got online conferences, everything is happening all the time. So, but at that time, you know, so I just launched the book because it was time for that short stories to come out. I launched the book and yeah, I didn't even have anything. And then it was time for the Cursed Touch to come out. And there was a question, should we wait and do a physical launch? Because I love the physical launches. I mean, in Johannesburg, I normally use the Love Books venue. And, you know, it's always worked out well for me. And honestly speaking, really, the bulk of the books get sold at the launch. You know, I mean, as independent authors, we know how difficult, how we struggle to sell our books. But you know, I'll always sell a fair number, maybe 20, sometimes a little more, sometimes a little less at a launch, and that's when it'll go. So I was quite nervous, you know, I was quite nervous about that. And then I decided there's no choice. We don't know when lockdown is going to be over. We don't know when events are going to be actually happening again. And let me try this. So I did a bit of investigation, and I decided to go with the option of Facebook Live event, of a Facebook Live event. And I attended a few of those, not necessarily launches, but other Facebook Live videos that people were putting up. And often they were on split screen, as many as 3 or 4 people on screen at a time. And I thought, okay, this could work. Because we had the option with the discussant. She lives in Johannesburg, but it just so happened at the time she was traveling. She wasn't around. You know, I think her husband is a diplomat and she travels quite extensively with him and for her own work as well. So she wasn't around at that time and we had no choice, but we had to do this call-in thing. And so we did all the investigations necessary. And then I did all the pre-marketing, sending out the invitations, trying to get as many people to commit as possible. I sent out emailers, I sent out WhatsApp, and then I have the social media that I use is Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter. I put out the advert as much as possible and try to encourage people to come. And then I did a test. I did a test a week in advance with my discussant. So we did actually a live test, and we even had 1 or 2 people come and say, do you guys know you live now? Because we were sort of chatting and discussing what we would be doing. And do you guys know you live now? You know, and I was like, yes, we know. We're just doing a test in preparation for the launch next week, because it was a week later. And then on the night, there was a little bit of a delay before Kanita and I managed to get ourselves on screen. So when we did the pre-launch, we had worked it out that, you know, I would start the video and then invite her to be on screen with me, because, you know, there is that option on Facebook Live. And on the test, it worked beautifully. It was instant, you know. And of course, as luck would have it, on the night, I wasn't able to send her the invitation, or she wasn't receiving it. And when she did receive it and she clicked accept invite to be on Raashida Khan's video, you know, it wasn't going through. So for the first few minutes, I just had to chat on my own while we were sorting that out. But that was okay. I did a bit of a reading and I spoke a little bit about the motivation behind the book. And then fortunately, she managed to get on and it was fine until we started having some sound glitches, some technical sound glitches. And the only thing that we could attribute it to is maybe there were more people watching than the first time around, because the first time around was just in the middle of the day, and, you know, whoever happened to be on caught a snippet of it. And then we tried various things, you know, putting ourselves on mute when either of us weren't speaking. Then we tried the option of earphones and a microphone, or without, and all sorts of things. But I think it was fairly okay in that most of the people heard most of it. It was just there was some feedback. So it was a bit jarring for some people, and I don't blame them. I can completely understand if you're hearing that, you know, it detracts from what you're listening to, and you do get a bit irritated. So yeah, it all in all, it was a great learning experience, and yeah, I learned a lot on being able to be a little bit more technically proficient, you know. Of course, the thing for me would be to do it again in the next couple of weeks. Otherwise, it's going to be forgotten and I have to retrain myself all over again from scratch.
And how did you manage interaction with your guests?
So because it's Facebook Live and you only have one other person on screen, or we chose to do it that way, guests were invited to submit their questions on the comments, in the comment section. And every now and then, either Kanita or I would read the question, would read out the comment, and then I would respond. And that's how we engaged with them. And then we did try and, you know, put on the comment line and also in the pre-advertising and the post-advertising that the book was available from Amazon and with the link, as well as if they were able to contact me directly, then I can send them, you know, I can send them the book. So we did engage on that level. I actually did put out a call and say, you know, if you have any questions and you want to send them beforehand, do that. But not many people took to that. I think when it's like a launch kind of thing or a live thing, I think people want to be engaging on that level. And maybe there weren't as many questions, if I must compare it to a live event. Maybe there weren't as many questions as there could have been or would have been. But on the other side, or the flip side of that, was actually people who attended the Facebook Live launch were different people, were other people who would normally come and support me at my live launches. So I have, you know, a fair number of friends and a fair number of readers and a fair number of fans who will always try and support and be there if they can when I am doing a launch. And surprisingly, none of them pitched up for the Facebook Live event, but other people who are my other Facebook friends or other colleagues or people that I've engaged with, but maybe not so, they were the ones who attended the Facebook Live, the online launch event. And I thought that was also interesting and good, because at least more people were getting to see me as the person and not just through my words, which is the most important thing. But sometimes for people to see a snippet or to see a little video or see engagement and engage directly with the author does help to sell them or to get them to buy the book or read the book. So yes, there were a few more people in that sense, people who wouldn't normally maybe attend a launch in the evening, or somebody who was from Durban. I had a few people from not only in Johannesburg, so that was also good, people from all over. And there were one or two people said, I'm not on Facebook, so I can't watch this, and if you're not on Facebook, and if I'd done it on Zoom, maybe I would have had a few more people. But then again, there's always a few people, because not everybody has downloaded Zoom either, it's only a recent thing, but not everybody does it. So, you'd have to weigh it up and see which one you'd get more people at. I think you're always going to pick up a few on the one platform and lose a few on the same. I think that's always going to happen. But yeah, there are lots of people who are not on Facebook. And I must confess to you, if it wasn't for the fact that I was an author and I needed to get out there, needed to sell books and, create awareness around my books and my stories, I probably wouldn't be on Facebook. I never was until about a year or two before I seriously started writing, or I knew that I was going to write, and I had started, writing, but I hadn't published anything. Until then, I wasn't really on any of the social media platforms. It's not my thing. Much as I'm a writer and I'm a very verbose person, as I'm sure you can tell, I can talk. At the same time, I'm still quite private. And even if you go onto my Facebook, you'll probably only find messages and things that are book related. There's very, very little that's personal. That's very little. I mean, you struggle to find an image of my husband, for example. There's no happy anniversary, my darling husband, or anything like that. You will find if you look hard enough, you will find one of him on my website, and that's just because he happened to attend one of the launches, and there was a picture taken and it was put up because it was part of a launch, not necessarily because we were married. So yeah, you will find one of him and of my kids, but otherwise, no, it's not my thing. So that in itself has been a big learning curve, putting myself out there, being on social media. And yeah, and I was a good few years behind everybody else when it came to Facebook, because I'd never joined until then.
Yeah, I know Facebook can be a little bit of a rabbit hole that authors find that it sucks up your time just as much as
Yes.
Research does.
Yes.
So you have to be very disciplined. You've got to say, okay, this is my allocated time slot and I'm going to stick to that. And this morning I was busy doing some research for medieval feasts, and to ask if a king was visiting another kingdom, where would you put the king?
Yes.
So when I was doing the research, all of a sudden there was this thing that popped up. These are what these celebrities looked like then, and this is what they look like now. And I'm like, ooh.
Yeah, exactly. Don't we know how we can go down? This internet is an insidious thing. You're doing some kind of research about a type of tree, and the next thing you're reading up on how to straighten your hair. And meanwhile, I don't even have curly hair, but I'm reading the stuff.
Well, look, when I got onto the section that says, do you wonder why there are no mosquitoes in Disneyland? And I clicked on it, I'm like, no.
Enough now, Kim, enough.
I have got goals that I've got to reach today, and the mosquito at Disney World actually has got nothing to do with those goals. So yeah, I definitely hear you on the Facebook thing. I usually advise people that I'm trying to help set up Facebook to give themselves a time limit, or else it's just you're not going to meet your goals. Apparently, I've done this social media training. And the guy who does it, his name is Sunil Siu. He's just absolutely fabulous. He said that there is a hormone that gets released by breastfeeding, shooting guns, and Facebook. And it gives you, a hormonal high. That's why people are so addicted to the likes and that kind of thing, because it's triggering in their brain this addictive, side effect. And they're like, okay, that sounds interesting. So you said that's why people who've had a Facebook account and delete it end up coming back again, because they haven't managed to kick the habit.
They're addicted.
So
Facebook, the new sugar.
Yes, there should be a disclaimer, or they should have an Addicts Anonymous kind of thing, where to go if you've stopped
exactly
completely.
Hotline.
So let's just chat about your book. I'm finding it quite riveting, but there might be a little bit of controversy in the book. So tell us about why you wrote it, what your experience has been, and what the feedback has been from people who've purchased it so far.
So Kim, you probably haven't read my other two books, Mirror Cracked and Fragrance of Forgiveness, either. My writing will probably always be controversial. There'll always be some theme or some element in it that is controversial. And this is not for controversy's sake. Please believe me. I'm not writing because I want to be sensational. I'm writing because I feel there's important stories that need to be told. There's important themes that need to be spoken about. There's challenges and issues in our societies and communities that are often swept under the carpet and not spoken about. And I'm hoping, I write for myself and for my readers and for various other reasons, but one of the things I would like to achieve is that maybe we can start having these conversations more openly. So the first one spoke about alternative sexuality in a Muslim context. And as you know, Muslim people are generally very conservative. And yes, that is a big generalization. And of course, it doesn't go across the board, everybody. But generally, Muslim people are quite conservative. And I must say, the first book especially, which I thought maybe has, the most jarring theme for people who are, who don't want to admit that these things are actually happening in our societies, actually was received very well. I had no backlash, when I first wrote the book and before it was published, and one or two people read, the initial versions, the beta readers. One of my friends who read it actually said to me, maybe you should write under a pseudonym, maybe you shouldn't. And of course, that was not an option for me at all. This was my labor of love. This was my baby. This was I had to own it. I did own it. And I was going to be very proud and happy to put my name behind it. I wasn't going to be afraid of any of the backlash. But fortunately, I must say, I've been very blessed and lucky. There's been nothing untoward, nothing negative. I've had mostly positive feedback, and I've had a lot of very encouraging feedback from lots of people from different sections of society to say, please continue writing. Please, we need these stories. I had two separate women on separate occasions, both of them Muslim, come up to me very soon after I wrote the book, just a few months after I wrote the book. And they said to me, this could have been my story. This really happened to me. And we don't talk about it in the family. We don't talk about it. It's just, something that we don't talk about at all. It's just not mentioned. So it was very good in that sense, and it's still continuing to have that kind of effect, because lots of people are still discussing, the books and the merits of it or the demerits of it. So the response has been very favorable. This particular one, the new one, The Cursed Touch, I think may even be a little bit more controversial in some ways, and this I'm basing on the reaction that I've received from the early readers. Everybody loves it. Everybody's very amazed by the power of the writing and the style of the writing and, all of that. I mean, I'm not going to talk about that. You can always go onto Goodreads and read some of the reviews. But it has hit a nerve or two. It has hit a nerve or two in the sense that in this particular book, the main character, the main protagonist, Sandra Kareem Edwards, is a very, very strong person. All my characters are strong. I love writing about strong female characters. That's where I find my mojo. That's what I want to write about. I want to write and celebrate strong female characters, especially women's empowerment is a big part of me. This particular one, I found that people didn't take to her, especially initially, because she's strong, but she's also very ruthless. She's very selfish. Everything revolves around her and her career and what she wants to achieve. And, she's very goal driven and all of that. And one or two of the readers didn't resonate with her at all. They didn't like her, you know, especially especially in the beginning. She does redeem herself slowly and surely in readers' eyes as she goes through her journeys, her physical and emotional, spiritual journeys to reach a different plane and, you know, become a better version of herself. And especially and somebody even said, you know, about how we portray women in society, and you know, there was an implication almost that I was portraying women negatively. And then I turned around and I asked her, I said, I really appreciate your feedback. I love your honesty and thank you. I will take it on and I will consider it. But may I ask, you know, if this was a male character, who was ruthless and who was driven and who was out, you know, to get all the best deals and the biggest deals and do whatever he can to further his career, how would you feel? And she took a moment or two, but she responded honestly and said, yes, you know, if it was a man, it would have been more acceptable. So somehow those characters that sometimes get perceived as being negative in women, in men, they celebrate. Oh, he's showing leadership. Oh, he's driven. Oh, he's, you know, he's gutsy and he's going for it, and the end justifies the means. There's various ways we explain it away. But yeah, if it's for women, and it's not everybody. A lot of the readers did also resonate and like her. But interestingly, my first book, everybody loved all the main characters. There are 3 main characters in the first book. There were two males and 1 female. Everybody loved all of them. They all were like, when are you writing the next one? We're missing out. They're like our friends. They become our friends. They, you know, when are you writing another one? And even though I thought maybe that topic was probably considered even more controversial. So you never know. You never know when people are ready for what. And yeah, look, I do court criticism. I do court controversy. And I think as any good writer, we have to push the boundaries. We have to, you know, we have to shake things up a bit because, yeah, you know, that apart from writing and doing it because we love it and for entertainment purposes, I think we do have a higher calling. I mean, I feel very strongly that as a writer, as all writers, we need to do what we can to promote reading, especially in our country. You know, that's another big cause of mine. One of my slogans is, let's make reading as natural as breathing. And I feel very strongly about that. I partner with an organization called Sia Funda Donate a Book. And together, well, with them, I help them to do collections of books, and I'm always promoting where I can with them. They open up libraries in rural schools. They collect secondhand books in good condition, and they open up libraries in rural schools. And you know, it's so critical that we get our country reading. I mean, there's so much of trouble and so much of problems that we have, and one of the things that can help, that can really help, if we get our country to become a reading nation. You know, readers are leaders. All those things that we hear and read, they actually all true. They're very, very true. I think if you become a regular reader, you become more empathetic. You know, you become more empathetic, and I think that's what's lacking in our. We're forgetting our, you know, our commonality, our humanity between each other, amongst each, forgetting that true, whatever it is you want to call it. Everybody's become very selfish. And I think probably that's because nowadays we do tend to celebrate the individual. And I think that's also very important, to celebrate the individual, and to, you know, especially when we have young kids and they all winners and they all must get a prize and they all must be, you know, celebrated for who they are, which is great because it gives them that sense of importance. But sometimes I think if there's no balance, if there's no making sure that it's both ways, that yes, there is about the me, but also about me within the community, we can tend to go on the other extreme, like Sandra did maybe in The Cursed Touch.
Yeah, I like the theme about looking at the duality of women, because sometimes we stereotype a person because they act a certain way in a certain situation, that is their whole personality is just about that. And that's not really true. I know with my first book that I wrote, there is an attack. A man attacks one of the characters, and it almost turned out to be a rape situation. Luckily, it didn't happen. But one of the readers responded to the book, and she says, there's no emotion in this character. And I'm needing to get like a feel for her, and it doesn't seem believable. And that was quite interesting because when I was a teenager, I did have someone that threatened to rape me, and I managed to get out of the situation. But the reason that I was in that situation is that I had left home at night without telling my parents, and I got into a situation that I shouldn't have been. I got out of the situation, but then I couldn't tell people why I was there, because they would have like, oh, this terrible thing that happened to you. Why were you there? And then you worry about the condemnation. So my response to the situation is I just didn't talk to anyone about it. I just carried on with life. So although the reader might say, oh, I would prefer to see tears and drama, whatever, not everyone responds that way. Sometimes they bottle it up and it will trigger much later. So that's what I had done in the book, is that she went to another place and she saw someone else who was being taken advantage of. And then all of a sudden it was a massive issue, and she responded in a big way to that situation because it was someone else who was being attacked. So
Kim, I actually think that's, sorry, I was just going to say, I actually think that's true to life, because that's what so many women, but not only women, anybody who goes through any trauma. I mean, that was a very traumatic experience for you, and I'm sorry for that. I'm really sorry that you had to go through that. But that's how a lot of people deal with trauma. And that's why, I mean, children who deal with abuse and things like that, they actually put up another persona, and that's happening to that person. It's not happening to me. Otherwise, they wouldn't be able to deal and cope with it. So well done to you on that.
Thanks so much. So let's close up a little bit. So number one, where can people find your book if they want to do both?
Okay. So my books are available on Amazon as ebooks and physical books. Obviously, if you're in South Africa, you're only going to get the ebook. And then by the end of the month, so anytime now, it's going to be available at Exclusive Books, the new book. All my titles are available at Exclusive Books. Obviously, though, not every branch will carry it. But if the branch you go to does not have it, they can order it for you, because it is on the system. You know, my titles are all on the system, and they order it. I don't know now with COVID, but before it used to be 3 days turnaround, 2-3 days turnaround, and they call you and you go and you can pick it up. Otherwise, you can get in touch with me via my website, which is raashisreflections.com, www.raashisreflections.com, all one word, or on through Facebook, Instagram, Twitter. Get in touch with me and I can deliver to you. The books retail, the novels retail at 250 Rand, and my short stories, because I also have a collection of short stories and a collection of poetry. The short stories are 200 Rand and the poetry is 150. And if it's Johannesburg, I normally deliver for free, but if it's anywhere else in South Africa, it's courier at an additional 100 Rand. But if you take 3 or more titles, I normally cover the courier cost. So it actually works out better for you to take 2 or more titles. And yeah, so there we go. That's where you can get it. But please do get in touch with me via Facebook at Raashi's Reflections, at Raashi's Reflect, or Raashida Khan. You'll just search for me, Raashida Khan, author.
Excellent. And we're actually going to put those links into the bottom. So please scroll down to the description to have a look at that. And also, if you are a brand new author and you're struggling a little bit with those passive voices that editors complain about all the time, take a look at Pro Writing Aid. I'll put a link in over there as well, because that's really what helped me when I started writing. I had no clue what I was doing. And that was sort of my guide to tell me where I was going right, what I could improve on. So it was more than just a spell check and that kind of thing. So Raashida, I wanted to say thank you so much for coming in and chatting to us. I really appreciate it. I think that there are a lot of people who are going to really enjoy your book. I see that ruthless part of that woman who just, you know, she's very strategic in the way that she wants to get things done, and it raised a couple of my eyebrows, but definitely I can see, you know, we expect men to be a certain way, but when women act like that, then it seems to be a bigger sin than if a man was acting that way. So I definitely got that. And I want to thank you so much for the contribution that you're making to people, to be able to get books out there for the community. If someone wanted to get hold of you in order to donate books for that organization, how would they do that?
Well, again, they can contact me via my website, rashidreflections.com, or any of the social media. And Kim, you know the person, please feel free to give them my email address as well, which you have. There's no, I actually prefer email because I know I'll get to it. Sometimes with the social media, you say you're going to get back to it and then you forget, or you've got to go and look for that comment. So yes, my email address is khanrashida@gmail.com. Please be in touch. We are constantly collecting books, any books, secondhand books. And, you know, we all have dozens lying around. You know, you probably have from when your kids were little. If you haven't gotten rid of them, please consider, you know, getting them all together, packaging them out, and we'll make a plan to come and fetch from you wherever you are.
Super. Thank you so much for joining us. And guys, next up, you're going to see a couple of videos from me on Make It Work. So we're going to be reviewing the publisher rocket system, which is really going to be very helpful to authors to sell a lot more books. Raashida, thank you so much. And you have a super day. And we look forward to hearing more from you soon.
Thanks. Thank you very much. Bye-bye.